I've been simultaneously dreading and looking forward to making this video. Unlike my LPS channel, I don't look back on my art commentary era too fondly. Whereas my LPS channel focused on me creating out of passion and having fun with stories and characters, some that I still have to this day, my art commentary channel focused on me complaining and speaking on serious topics when I was clearly not mature enough to do so. Well, regardless, it's all out there. My days on Allimations, now the Squidster, were still an important part of my internet life and growing up. I spent years resenting it, but now I've come around to acknowledge it as a part of me. So let's revisit what 13 to 14-year-old me was doing in the art commentary and animation meme community. I made this channel on October 15th, 2017, which was around the time I was leaving my LPS channel. I think the biggest thing that makes me look back on this era so negatively is that I trashed the LPS community in the process of moving on to art and animation memes, which was wildly unnecessary. I was being defensive because my fans at the time were rightfully sad that I was moving on, and I misinterpreted it as, they're pressuring me to stay and they're all fake fans who don't care about me. So this channel is basically built from resentment. But it also stems from a genuine love for art and a desire to make OCs and animation memes. My first real rant that put me on the radar was a rant on someone who was clearly a troll and a little-ass kid who didn't understand the implications of their actions, specifically a troll and a little-ass kid who didn't really have a platform and nobody knew who they were. I remember back in the day I would take these kinds of people so seriously, and I think a lot of people in the community took on this habit. Sans fangirls, trolls, and haters, the list goes on. We were all just a bunch of dumbass kids at the end of the day. But I took these things to heart, like they were a real problem, you guys, and we had to put a stop to it. It's really cute watching children try to be problem-solving activists, but then they just talk about how a fellow 12-year-old made kind of a bad video or some shit. Speaking of bad videos, my 2017 content mainly consisted of making rants on literal nobodies, specifically sans fangirls. All my reviews and rants were taking the killing and mean behavior to heart as if this isn't just normal dumb cringy behavior from children that they'll grow out of on their own. It's almost never necessary to make a whole public spectacle about this kind of behavior, yet I always felt the need to be some kind of vigilante by bringing this horrible thing to everyone's attention instead of doing my fucking algebra homework. The art commentary community has a major problem of bringing nothing situations to the attention of thousands, putting the spotlight on some kid nobody's ever even heard of. I do think kids engaging in poor behavior online is something to be discussed and condemned regardless of their age. Age doesn't make you exempt from criticism, and it doesn't excuse shitty actions. But there's a difference in discussing an issue or informing a child of their mistakes versus making a 118-page Google Doc about your ex-friend with 11 followers on TikTok who, shocker, acted like an immature child because they are an immature child. My first rant did not need to be as long as it was. I never scripted my videos because it just felt inauthentic and I wanted to be myself, but you can still do that with a script. You're just organizing your thoughts to make a more cohesive video that doesn't derail into rambling or include stuttering. For most of the video, we're looking at the same couple of images over and over again while I ramble about the least important shit possible plaguing this dog-eat-dog world, and then the last portion of the video pretty much serves as a fade-straight archive. Even I stopped taking it seriously by the end of it. When I'm ready, I'll slice out of it! All of my earliest rants were poorly edited, full of terribly cropped screenshots, usually lacked sources for some of the claims I made, sprinkled with irrelevant rambling, and generally focused on such mundane issues that can be solved by simply going outside and soaking up the rays. I also took everything super literally, including things that were very clearly jokes. Pretty ironic considering this upcoming video. Also, my second fangirl killer rant was just me trying to act tough and challenging this random child on the internet, threatening to call the police because they're cyberbullying. My favorite video from this era is probably my Cyberkitten rant because it's just me dragging a Cyberkitten like, damn, there was actually humor in this. It was entertaining and funny to listen to because she's just catching strays.
And basically we're just staring at this frame for about like 80 seconds and then it finally switches over to this as if we're blind and can't see that clearly within a second. That is a giant ear. I think Kitty Dog could easily beat you with ears like those. She turned to like Dumbo with those ears.
There are moments where I take things too literally, but for the most part it's just a video I can genuinely look back on and laugh at. One other thing I did involving sans fangirls was redesigning them. God damn, I was obsessed. I posted the video in 2018, but the original redesigns were done in 2017, and to probably nobody's surprise, they're all pretty dog shit. I didn't have any real art knowledge that made me qualified to redesign random 10-year-olds OCs without permission, yet here here I was, desaturating all the colors because cringe culture told me bright colors bad. On the topic of my art from 2017, I do want to say that I like the fact these sprites are drawn on paper. It's not something you see very often at all. The art from this time is not particularly appealing. I didn't start drawing super often until like late 2016, and this is late 2017, so you can see how little experience and knowledge I really had. The bangs just kind of disappear, that ear is backwards, the anatomy is certainly there, these hands are backwards, the line art is very wobbly. I think I also needed to learn when to use the appropriate sprites because
what they do is they actually attempt to get these people to kill themselves. I feel like Dark BF could be a really amazing person in the community and has a lot of potential, but for some reason they just waste it on cringe compilations who make like art and other things like that to participate in Pride Month as allies. As Jesus Christ, I can't talk!
Nearing the end of 2017, I ended up killing off my original persona because she originated from my LPS mascot and I was trying way too hard to separate myself from it. I have a track record of trying to ignore a past event or time in my life and trying so hard to move on from it, but I think it's important to acknowledge and accept all of you, if that makes sense. Everything's a learning experience. My resentment towards LPS is also really funny considering nowadays I'm back into LPS full swing, meanwhile I avoid the art commentary community like the plague. Anyway, this brings us to the next era of videos, where I really found my footing and started gaining more traction. We start moving away from Sans fangirl reviews and more into... Stop complaining about my cussing. We start moving more into OC and art-centered videos rather than petty trolls, thank God. The videos stop dragging out so much, we get some low-quality speed paints, I start talking about my OCs, and we'll get the occasional rant or two. One major problem that remains in my videos for a while is a severe lack of editing and visuals. So many of my videos will just be frozen on one shitty drawing for its entirety when I literally had the ability to record, albeit low-quality speed paints, and I had 2 sets of sprites at this point in time. It makes them really boring to watch. I guess while we're here, I should talk about some of my OCs from this time, which to be honest aren't around anymore. I made backstory videos for Paul and Fish, 2 of my most popular characters on that channel, and never got around to any others. These were my only scripted videos, by the way. I just want to point out my hypocrisy when it came to OCs and their backstories. I made a video talking about how people would only focus on the edgy and tragic parts of their characters rather than fleshing them out to be their own people outside of the bad things that have happened to them. I understand that traumatic events can be significant to your character and shape who they are today, but it shouldn't be their only aspect. There's so much to people, personality traits, our senses of humor, our likes and dislikes, our body language. From the big things to the little things, I think it's important to flesh your character out with more than just their most traumatic event. This isn't communicated well at all in my original rant, by the way. It's 4 minutes and I spent half of it giving irrelevant information on one of my characters. Regardless, that was the point I was making, and yet my characters all had this problem. Their most notable traits were either their romantic life or their trauma. Paul and Fish have this same issue in their backstory videos, which, by the way, are frozen on one still image while I yap about their ex-girlfriends nobody in their right mind cares about. As for the rants of this time, I stopped whining about irrelevant Sans fangirls and began to complain about wider-known drama, like Casual Susan vs. Ashley, cringe compilations, and gay people. Yes, you heard me right, 2018 me did not approve of Pride Month in the slightest. As an apparently straight person, I made a whole shitty and controversial video talking about how gay people don't need Pride Month because we should all be equal and how heterophobia is a big problem that needs just as much focus as, I don't know, people getting literally hate crimed in the streets? Priorities. It seems I hadn't quite grown out of my complaining about nothing issues I pulled out of my ass era. I was rightfully called out for making this piece of shit video and I was quick to delete it and follow up with an apology. An apology in which the audio quality is worse than usual because for some reason I filmed it in my echoey living room rather than the comfort of my bedroom. This apology/remake is also diarrhea because I still came out of the experience not understanding that heterophobia literally cannot and does not exist in any way, shape, or form. People on Twitter saying "ew, the straights" is a joke is not equivalent to gay and trans people being hate crimed, outlawed, and having their rights constantly under threat. I still came out of this not understanding why Pride exists or what it represents. Pride specifically exists because they are discriminated against. Pride isn't inherently about celebrating your identity, it's about celebrating the freedom and rights to exist regardless of your identity. The first Pride was a riot, for God's sake. The flags represent not just your identity, but also years of discrimination for having that identity, and I feel like that gets lost in the sauce sometimes. Tangent aside, this video is ass. I basically apologize for rushing the video and not doing my research, but then I just doubled down on my previous points. I kept saying we should have a Pride year, and that we should all be equal, and like, no shit, dickhead, that's the end goal, but that is not the state of the world at the moment. The state of the world as it stands is the reason we have pride. I claimed to understand why the month exists, but I clearly didn't. Let's see, what other terrible, meaningless rants did I make about nothing issues? There's a deleted video from this time that was honestly some of my most embarrassing work, and it was basically a video in which I slandered the entire LPS community and praised the animation meme community. This goes back to the resentment I held towards the LPS fandom. This video was obviously very emotionally driven, which led to it having no logic or reasoning to make my point. What was my point exactly? Well, hard to say because the video is gone now and I don't remember all the details. All I know is that I had a personal bad experience when I tried leaving my LPS channel, and I decided to take it out on an entire community while putting an objectively terrible and dangerous one on a pedestal. There's nothing about these two fandoms that are even comparable. There was no justifiable reason for the video to exist besides me venting out my own grievances, and I did it all in such a clumsy, irrational, and hateful way. Luckily, my whole rebellion phase against the LPS community didn't last, clearly. But it took me until 2019 to finally grow out of it. This is probably my second most shameful video I've ever made, hence why it's deleted now. We'll get into the worst one later. One video I want to touch on is how poor constructive criticism can damage an artist. I talked about how I got very vague criticism on my art, comments like, "fix it," without any further elaboration, and how it actively hindered my art. One of the main points I brought up is how I was constantly told to work on anatomy with no explanation. And apparently the problem I thought I had was that my characters were all rectangles and didn't have any curves? So that's why my Sona ended up looking like that. Okay, I guess this literally proves the point I was making in my original video that non-specific critique can affect an artist's growth and understanding of what they're doing wrong. How ironic. I didn't even understand what the hell anatomy was apparently, or what was wrong with mine. So I came to the conclusion on my own that my problem was that my characters were rectangle shaped and needed more curves. You can absolutely have characters that take on a rectangle motif. I have plenty like that today. Anatomy is all about studying the human body, which parts go where and how they connect. Having that understanding is what helps you draw the human body better. I failed to have that understanding, resulting in me taking a lot longer to improve. One odd thing about my video is that it seems to rely too heavily on others' criticism in order to get better. There's this weird message I'm setting that my improvement relies on other people giving me good advice, when in reality, it's up to you as an artist to improve. Criticism can help, but it's really not a necessity. Your art will naturally improve if you keep drawing and strive to get better with enough time, practice, and experience. I myself could have looked up anatomy references at any given point. The internet was my oyster. But I didn't, because I was stubborn and didn't want to use references or learn the boring way, which to be fair is still a habit I fall into. On the topic of my art at the time, I just want to say that these are my favorite sprites I ever made for the channel. Something about them is so charming, and I also really genuinely like the expressions. The angry one is so full of life. I like the tail covering her up in the bashful sprite. I like this particular sprite for some reason. It's always been my favorite. The digital ones that followed are so fucking trash, dude. My traditional art was better than my digital at this time because I was more experienced in it, but also, just take a look at the body, dude. There is no torso. The shading makes no sense. The colors are boring. I also don't know why I made her like so thick because I'm built like a fucking stick in real life. Anyway, a different type of video I tried making during this time was a series called Working on Memes, where I would show off my process of creating animation memes. Animation memes that never actually came to light. Except for this monstrosity. These involved me recording my computer screen in the same low quality way I always did, and still do. The thing is, most of the content didn't even involve working on memes or accurately showing a decent process. This whole series, if anything, exposes my lack of knowledge on digital art, animating, and editing at the time. I didn't even know how to save files properly, so I would always screenshot my finished art and upload it that way. The second episode consisted of me playing Toontown, which of course makes it the best installment of the series. The third one I worked on a drawing rather than an animation meme, and the fourth one finally achieved what the original premise was supposed to be. One other thing I spent that episode doing was looking at the channel of my supposed girlfriend, LPS Jade Fields, or Jade, a mysterious figure who seemingly came out of nowhere making LPS music videos and soon began dating me. Whatever happened to that? On July 17th, 2018, I released a low-quality speed paint of me and my new girlfriend, Jade. I announced to the public that I was now dating her YouTube channel being LPS Jade Fields at the time. She would post LPS music videos since 2017, apparently being inspired by me. And I would comment on her videos and share her videos with people on both my LPS and art commentary channels. Who was this nobody YouTuber who came out of nowhere and managed to get my attention? And furthermore, how did we get so close to the point that we started pursuing a romantic relationship? It was me. LPS Jade Fields was me. This is very old news at this point, but there might actually still be people who don't know since it wasn't really brought up on my channel. I announced that I was actually pretending to be Jade, pretending to date myself in my official Discord server in 2018, which I assume no longer exists. I also made a post on DeviantArt where I made a new PFP for the channel and announced in the description that we were the same person. It was full of excuses, and by the end of it, it didn't even really seem like I learned anything.
I'm sorry about lying about her having all these terrible things, but I'm not sorry for pretending to date her. Anyways, this is her style, and also the PFP for her channel. I'm making PFPs and styles for all our channels. Oh yeah, I think I would just post events and shit posts and stuff on her channel, to be honest.
Once it was out that we were the same person, I decided to utilize the channel to post events and shitposts and other videos that just didn't belong on my main channels, renaming it to JD. It was basically just a side channel at this point, one that I abandoned for 5 years before I decided to randomly pick it back up recently under the new name, Sunsettle. It's mostly just a dumping ground for events, shitposts, and unfinished videos. It also includes deleted Allimations videos from 2017, so that's pretty interesting. I'll link it in the description if you want to have a look. I didn't originally make Jade to fake date her, fun fact. She was originally made in late 2016 to defend me in an internet argument. Yup, I got into a slap fight with some petulant child and I needed backup. So I created the channel pretending to be someone else and befriended myself through the comment thread. Just some fun backstory there. But what could have possibly possessed me to date this fake persona? Furthermore, why did I create so many different channels of different personas? And why, near the end of this whole Jade saga, did I suddenly disappear from my channel and upload almost nothing for the entirety of 2019? Well, these can all be traced back to my obsession with a certain individual. I swear on everything I love, this is genuinely relevant to the video. People are still recognizing me to this day, not from my LPS channel, not from Allimations, not from my live streams, but from buried drama. So let's talk about that. I had to preface this with an obligatory disclaimer that this is not meant to cause more drama surrounding this individual. He does that just fine on his own. This segment of the video is about condemning and making fun of myself and also taking accountability for some rather awful content I made about him. I'm still allowed to talk about my own experiences even if they're old. This isn't about him, this is about me. If you don't know who Birdie is, he was a heavily controversial figure in the animation meme community who left the internet a while ago. In 2017 and 2018, I really looked up to him as an artist and idolized him to the point of being a fangirl and shipping myself with him despite him being a real-ass person. I made a lot of fan art for Birdie and even made a whole-ass animatic surrounding drama, which in hindsight was not a good idea and I'm not really sure what possessed me to do such a thing. You get it, I was a huge fan with a weird crush, whatever. Nothing super out of the ordinary for a 14-year-old. However, this also led me to repeat some of his behaviors, which explains the whole Jade shebang since he also made an account and pretended to date himself a long time ago. He also just wasn't a great person and did not make the best decisions, and I followed suit, participating in some rather attention-seeking behaviors for reasons I couldn't even articulate at the time. Those behaviors weren't really his fault, by the way. He was a child. This also explains why I self-shipped to begin with, because he had done the same thing with creators he looked up to in the past. He was also a huge inspiration for my art, and it took me such an incredibly long time to let go of his fucking art style and allow my own style to flourish by itself. I even made a vent on my DeviantArt in early 2019, long after I stopped respecting the guy, about how I could no longer look up to him like I used to. But why was that exactly? What happened that caused me to no longer be inspired by him? To no longer have respect for him? To go from being a very loud Birdie fangirl and defender to downright hating him in 2019. So basically, I was on a stream and Birdie and his friends made fun of me and it hurt my feelings. As much as I could joke about this incident now because it's been 7 years and I have bills to pay, it genuinely did hurt me at the time. I was a 14-year-old kid who really looked up to this artist and he just humiliated me in front of hundreds of strangers for seemingly no reason, poking fun at my LPS videos and general personality. I'm not entirely sure what prompted such a personal attack to this day. Maybe he didn't like the old self-shipping I did, maybe he didn't like me drawing my Sona being all buddy-buddy with him. Well, at least he had a change of heart, considering he encouraged a kid to draw inappropriate art involving themselves in one of his Sonas. I guess change is possible. Anyway, my confidence tanked, resulting in 1,000 vents, becoming inactive on both my channels, and I basically made this incident my whole personality for a little while. I was also very weirdly parasocial with him. I would make vents and talk about him in such a way that people actually mistaken us for being exes. I acted like he was someone I could trust, someone I was in love with, someone who broke my heart and left me to dry. This can be seen mainly in a lot of my old DeviantArt descriptions, which I actually reacted to a while back on streams.
But they're so abusive and horrible. Are they manipulating me too? Bitch doesn't even know who you are. We connect so well. Bitch, we have so much past. What are you talking about? You don't even know who they are. We could have been someone so much better. Ugh, girl, who are you?
Pettiness and melodrama aside, there is a genuine reason I bring this up. It actively changed the trajectory of my channel. I stopped uploading for the whole year outside of one particular video. A Birdie rant. Now, I didn't make this to talk about what he'd done to me. It just so happens that soon after my experience, it came out that he was being abusive to one of his partners, and I proceeded to make a rant about it. This may actually be the shittiest video I've ever made. It is literally just 10 minutes of saying, this drama is bad, the situation, Birdie did such bad things, without ever explaining or going in depth about said situation. It was just 10 minutes of fucking filler despite having a whole ass Google Drive at the time I could have used for evidence of my video, and now the drive is gone, so it doesn't even work anymore. I didn't include an inkling of evidence for the abuse I wanted to cover in said video, yet I included a contribution from my fucking nobody friend at the time where they basically repeated the same filler bullshit I was feeding the masses. This is why this video is private now. The sprites are meh. This era of my art has a lot of problems, but we don't even get to explore it on this channel because I barely uploaded at all. This is basically the only taste we get in my 2019 art. I do like how I added a background, not such a big fan of the colors, and especially not a fan of how there are only 4 fucking sprites. I don't know where to mention this, but around this time I also changed my channel name temporarily to Squidward's Christian Chair, and then later to The Squidster, which is what it remains to this day. I just had a thing for changing usernames, I guess. But this wasn't the only video I made on Birdie. In 2019, I began to invest a lot of my time in a new channel I made solely to rant on him. It was pretty pathetic. This channel is called Birds Burping Bickelson. I just recently deleted all the actual rants made, although there are probably re-uploads floating around, but I want to properly apologize even though it's been so long. They weren't just poorly made anymore, they were actively harmful and caused a lot of harassment and primarily transphobia towards Birdie. I was constantly accusing him of faking dysphoria and misgendering him and trying to advocate for everyone else to do the same, as if that should have even been the focus. I definitely don't think he was a good person at the time, and I do believe his behavior should have been addressed, but by someone who is actually equipped to do so, not some 14-year-old who's angry at him for making fun of her once and wants revenge and uses him abusing his ex as an excuse to justify her toxicity, hate-mongering, and transphobia towards him throughout almost all of 2019. This didn't just take place on this channel. I also displayed this immature behavior on my DeviantArt and even JD, as well as investing almost all my free time in a fucking drama server full of toxic individuals like myself. I would remake Birdie's art when mine was no better, constantly bitch about him, and generally perpetuate transphobia towards him. I have no excuse. I was a jackass throughout all of 2019. While I don't have any respect for this guy today, my videos were made solely out of hatred towards him and were incredibly biased. I'm not proud of the transphobia and harassment I caused with my platform, and I apologize. No matter how bad of a person he turned out to be or how much he hurt my feelings, none of it justifies this behavior or suddenly makes it okay. It's honestly just sad that I became so obsessed with drama that I basically abandoned my channel, even making a stream explaining that I would no longer be active. My main reason? Because I thought Birdie was influencing the whole community to be incredibly toxic. Of course, if you spend all your time in a drama server surrounding Birdie and toxicity, you are going to think the whole community is like that. Get up! Eventually, though, I finally matured and left all my drama bullshit behind. I realized I was being toxic and decided to make a turnaround. I started focusing more on my actual hobbies, and wouldn't you know it, I revived the Squidster one last time. In late 2019, I revived my channel with event animatics surrounding the friend group I'd accumulated that literally surrounded and stemmed from drama. Shocker, it turned out to be toxic. I honestly find it a little poetic that I spent the whole year being obsessed with drama, only to return to my channel with a video basically showing off the consequences of that. Regardless, I managed to get out of that toxic group and made an official return to the Squidster with a new goal in mind. I wanted to focus more on my OCs, art, and learning how to make animatics, which of course is something I did eventually figure out. Gone were the art commentary videos. After being so invested in drama the previous year, I realized how toxic the community was and how poorly it was affecting my judgment. I generally stayed away from rants regarding the art community from this point forward. While I wasn't as active as I used to be, it was because I was putting more effort and care into my work. I was learning how to make animatics, which I was still very inexperienced with at the time, and as a result they took longer than they do now. But I did end up pumping out some videos that I'm still proud of to this day, like getting into new fandoms and my Panic PMV that I'd like to remake in the future. I wasn't as well known in this era, which unfortunately got to my head because I still hadn't moved past the amount of views I used to get and wanted so desperately for people to know who I'd become at the time. By mid-2020, my channel was starting to fizzle out as my Hat in Time fixation took over my life. In December 2020, I announced I'd be moving to a new channel, that channel being the one you see before you. I decided to move both my LPS and art videos to StrawGlicks. One might say it's disorganized and cluttered to have drastically different content on one channel, and that's a fair point, but I'm just here to have fun, not to be a professional. Nowadays, I'm thriving with my LPS content, artwork, animatics, and OCs. Speaking of which, most of my OCs from the Allimations era did not survive the purge. The classics like Paul, Fish, and Jackson are all lost to the Shadow Realm. All those OCs were made on a whim just to have some OCs without tying them into a greater idea or having some kind of story to tell with them. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Nowadays, I've reverted back to most of my LPS characters from the past, as well as some new ones, whose stories are told through LPS series just like the good old days. In addition to those, I also have characters that exist mostly for design or don't have much of a story to tell. I'd like to make other videos talking about my OCs separately. You can probably look forward to a video about my Toon OCs sometime in the near future since I'm working on the script. And hey, let's bring up Bickelson while we're at it. I gave the old design to my friend and completely repurposed and redesigned my Bickelson. He's now a possum named Bickelson Butters, a grouchy guy in his 50s who used to get into a lot of drama, who now spends his days somehow living off his incredible luck at sports gambling. As for my Sona, she got redesigned multiple times until she eventually manifested into several different Sonas, all with slightly different purposes. Currently, my main Sona, fully representing me in the flesh, is this one right here. My next is Sunset, one of my absolute favorite characters who brings me a lot of comfort and is really fun to draw. She's a Sona that was originally inspired by one of Cosmar's old characters, and fun fact, her very first appearance was in this vent I posted on Sunsettle, which centered around my drama obsession and my realization that I was toxic. Whenever I'm having a bad day or I just can't get my pen moving, drawing Sunset is my go-to. Next up is Aladison, who's nearly identical to my 2020 Persona. To this day, I'm attached to this Sona and really wanted to bring her back, but I couldn't find a purpose for her until I got a bright idea. I decided to make her the representation and mascot of my streaming channel, Aladison Streams, hence the name. Back in 2020 when I first designed her, I was getting really into streaming, so she has a lot of important ties to that channel, making this change feel appropriate. The one major thing I changed about her design is her hair color, because the blonde blends too much with her fur, and if I make it more saturated, it blends too much with her shirt. I'm really happy with the new hair color and where she stands today. She means a lot to me. I also have my LPS Sona, which is really just my LPS mascot in anthro form. She's used in my intro and outro, considering this channel mostly centers around LPS. My 2017 Sona doesn't exist because she too was based on my mascot, and I now have a better character for that, but she will always hold a place in my heart. As for the classic 2018 Sona, writing this script actually inspired me to bring her back because her design is still so cute to me, honestly. It's really not a bad design and it has a lot of potential despite the hair and fur blending together. However, she sort of turned into a weird creature? Rather than being a Sona to represent me, she's more so the class pet who all my Sonas collectively take care of. She's an odd creature running around and they all feed her talkies. She still sort of represents my younger self from this time, which explains that little quirk. And that's pretty much where we're at today. I make LPS videos, animatics, and I draw. A lot. I realized that a lot of drama from the old days just doesn't matter anymore, and I've been able to grow from my past experiences to become a better version of myself. A version of myself that thrives on creativity and passion like I first did when I started my LPS channel. Whether you're an old Allimations fan, someone from my LPS Awesome TV days, or a new viewer tuning in, I hope you've enjoyed this journey down memory lane. Also, the most popular video on my whole channel is this school portrayed by Spongebob video at almost 3 million views. That's pretty funny.